Edging, why it is worse for you than just watching pornography in your Nofap porn reboot. I'm Dr. Trish Leigh. Let me tell you how. Okay, so in this video, we are going to cover three things. Number one, let's talk about what edging is. And number two, we'll talk about what it does to your brain. Then number three, my favorite part, I'm going to give you a brain tip so that you can start to reverse the effects of edging on your brain. So let's break it down. Number one, what is edging? Edging is quite terrible for you, and it's much worse than just watching pornography, because basically what you are doing to yourself is you might open a tab or 3 or 40, and then you linger your brain in this state where you are creating moderate levels of dopamine release that are increasing over time without reaching orgasm, so that you can let your brain stay there. So you don't reach orgasm, so that this dopamine release continues over time. And then many people will open lots of tabs and will keep increasing the intensity, because essentially what you're doing is you are increasing the level of dopamine release over this extended amount of time. So some people will do it within one session, some people will do it within one day, other people will linger in this state across sessions and days, and sometimes even as long as a week. And what it does is, in the business, we call it the bubble effect, because it will really help you feel this high, and it will keep the dopamine releasing into your system. So I see people who write comments on the channel saying, you know what, porn really helps me do my best work and it helps me feel well at work. Well, especially if you're edging, that might be the case for you in the short run, because what it's doing to you in the long run is it's giving your brain this unnatural, not found in nature, artificial level of neurochemical release that is staying around for longer and longer time frames, and then is increasing. So what you're doing is you're building a tolerance, and at the same time you're trashing the reward circuitry in your brain, the motivational circuitry in your brain. You are making it so that your brain is no longer able to exercise control and decision making. That's all proven by science. The limbic system and the prefrontal cortex are impacted. So edging is much worse than just engaging in a pornography session, where then you have an orgasm and all the dopamine rushes into your system with other neurochemicals like oxytocin, which is basically coupling your brain to the screen. Not something you want. But that neurochemical release happens in your brain, and then it will start coming back down, not to optimal levels, but it'll start coming back down from these excessively high levels. So that is why it is much, much worse for you than just, PMO in and of itself. So what do you do about it, and how do you reverse it? So this is number three, your brain tip. And you're probably not going to love what I have to say, but you're likely going to have to rip that Band-Aid off and start to unwire and rewire and hardwire your brain in the right direction. For most people, when they've gotten to the level of edging, there is no backing out. And we know from science, there's brain scans that prove that people who have been consuming pornography with consistency and frequency, and especially intensity that is involved in edging, their brains look very similar to heroin addicts. Not a pretty sight. It's shrunken and it has underactivity. You can look for pictures on my website at drtrishleigh.com. But it's not a pretty sight. And so what that means is, when you get ready for a session, you will likely not have the ability to control yourself to only consume pornography in a more manageable way. So you got to rip that Band-Aid off and abstain from the habit in and of itself. And if you are an edger and you've been doing this, you may have worse withdrawal symptoms than other people who haven't engaged in the habit in this way. So it can be more difficult for you. So if you're that 0.001% that can wean yourself back out, then go for it, because that will offset the feelings that you will have from withdrawal, which can include anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, physically feeling terrible, brain fog, inability to think. And if you just think about it logically, you've had all this dopamine just, cruising around in your brain, making it so that you don't feel junky in all the ways that I just described. So when you take that high level of dopamine out, you crash and you feel awful physically, mentally, cognitively, the whole gamut. But the good news is, if you feel awful, you know your brain is changing. It is starting to unwire. Now, your brain tip is start rewiring it in the right direction by engaging in activities that produce dopamine and serotonin, the happiness neurochemical, in healthy ways so that you can offset the feelings that will happen because of the crash. Okay, I hope that helps you out, but you're going to have to rip that Band-Aid off. If you need help doing it, please reach out to me at drtrishleigh.com. I have my short course, which is a beautiful start if you haven't taken it yet. I have a longer course that will be available on my website. The page is already there describing it, and of course, I have coaching also. So always remember, control your brain or it will control you.